Class is now in session. I am Professor Hockey, and today we'll be discussing some Evander Kane news. This is a topic that I have not discussed in a very long time. Even during this past off-season, I never really talked about it when it came to the future plans of the San Jose Sharks, and this is because it was such a situation filled with uncertainty that it was kind of useless for me to comment on it because I really had no idea in which way it could possibly end up resolving. But finally, we got news today that the San Jose Sharks and Evander Kane have reached a settlement between themselves, and that settlement does have a couple of interesting details to it. So let's first discuss the Evander Kane contract. If it were still in effect for the San Jose Sharks today, they'd have 3 years remaining on it, and while it would be $21 million total in terms of cap hit, it would actually only be $19 million in terms of real money to pay towards him. Evander Kane, meanwhile, since he got, his contract terminated by the Sharks last season, ended up moving over to the Edmonton Oilers, and this offseason signed a 4-year deal with Edmonton. And over these next 3 years, where he would have played with the Sharks had his previous contract been in place, he's making $16.5 million. And so the settlement is that the Sharks are going to pay the difference of money that he would have gotten if he was still with San Jose, which is $2.5 million. What makes this interesting and also a win for the San Jose Sharks is that while this money will indeed count as a cap hit, it will not actually be for this year or next year or any amount of time that is actually relevant at this point, but it will be retroactively applied to last year's salary cap. And so suddenly, if you were to look back at what was the case last year, they'll have an extra $2.5 million because of Evander Kane's terminated contract. So like I said, this was a pretty big win for San Jose because there were multiple rumors that this could end up in a significantly worse situation. The worst case scenario seemed to be that Edmonton Oilers, his contract with the Oilers would get voided and he'd be forced to return to San Jose to play out the last 3 years of his contract. But even in kind of like decent situations, it would still look like the Sharks were going to be caught on the hook over these next few years with maybe a couple of million of just dead cap space. So the fact that they not only don't have to deal with Evander Kane, the saga with him and the San Jose Sharks is entirely over, but they don't even have to pay anything more on terms of cap hit on their salary cap over the next few seasons. So big win for San Jose, but also a big win for Evander Kane and the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers, of course, do end up with a player who seemingly has extremely good chemistry with Connor McDavid. Now, to be fair, pretty much any top 6 forward in the NHL would probably have very good chemistry with Connor McDavid because Connor McDavid's a very good player, the best in the league, and so it's not as though this is some sort of great compliment of Evander Kane, but still the fact that the Oilers were able to get him is a win for them. And then, of course, when it comes to Evander Kane, we can make all the jokes we want about this not actually being the case, but maybe a 4th fresh start for him will actually be good. It didn't work out in Winnipeg, it didn't work out in Buffalo, it didn't work out in San Jose, but maybe there's a chance he'll actually find his way here in Edmonton. It should be noted, of course, that when he arrived to San Jose at the trade deadline of the 2018 season, he was very good, which is why the San Jose Sharks gave him that 7-year contract extension. And for a couple of years, there was that honeymoon phase where things still worked out, but it was really the 2021 season which seemed to be the start of the cracks for the relationship between the Sharks as well as Evander Kane. And so by the 21-22 season, the Sharks didn't want anything to do with him. Will something similar like that happen to Evander Kane? Maybe, maybe not. We might not even see any sort of evidence of that in this upcoming year, or maybe not even the year after that, but I won't actually make any sort of comment on what he might actually end up doing with the Oilers because, like I said, the Sharks have wiped their hands of the Evander Kane situation. It was really, really awkward, especially earlier on this season when he had that big suspension, and then there were the questions of whether or not he'd actually end up getting to play with the team. But now he is gone, and we as fans, as well as the Sharks organization, as well as Evander Kane, as well as the Edmonton Oilers, everyone can now move on and look forward to the future. Class dismissed.